can go ahead and state your name and yeah, who you are.
Randy Joseph Boyd. I was in the National Guard from 2003 through like 2011. I initially joined to be a truck driver, but I went to school to be an 11 Charlie. That was part of a deployment, an 18 months deployment. Uh, well, before that was the school to be a mortarman, and so it made it. I forget, it was like 2 years. Was uh, the whole actually like the play. It was a year in Iraq, but it was all the other stuff for training and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
Uh, yeah, and then the second deployment was also a year deployment with the training on the beginning, so it was like another 18 months deployment right directly after that.
yeah. So was it two deployments total?
Yep.
All right, for sure.
Yeah, two
Yeah,
two one. The first one was to the Habbaniyah in Anbar province, Triangle of Death or Sunni Triangle. Then the
yeah.
second one was in Baghdad.
Okay. And were they both the same operation? Was it both Operation Iraqi Freedom? Is that what it was called, or is it?
Yeah, OIF. I don't know if it's I say OIF 1 or 2. I don't know. It was
Yeah,
one or the other, but they were it was back to back.
for sure.
It
Yeah,
was 2005 through 2005 was the first deployment through 2006, and the next one was like 07, 08. But just a short burst of time in between.
yeah. And you joined kind of like in your mid 20s, your late 20s, kind of like I did, or
Yeah, I was 26.
26, right? Yeah,
Mhm.
for sure. I mean,
And
and do you
well,
think
and you know why?
what?
Because your dad was over there with the initial invasion and all that kind of stuff, and in my mind, I was thinking what I was doing, and I was like, and I was worried about him, and I was like, maybe if I join, I could go over there and I could like see him and help him and do all this stuff. But I was crazy, I was like really amped up back then and
Yeah,
patriotic and all this kind of stuff, and that was the way my mind thought. Like, that was kind of unusual. I mean, I thought it was really cool. And I want to fight.
yeah. There's still stigma. It's hard because I'm out here now and being behavioral health, it's like having a target on my back. Like people walk by with their brims down, like everyone knows my name. They're like scared. They're like, oh, that's the guy that's just gonna get you out. But it's just stigmatized. Like and I think because of that reason, a lot of people get left behind or don't know that, there are people trying to actively help or actively trying to understand. I guess did any of you have the opportunity was there a strong behavioral or mental health presence back then while you were in, or was it mostly just kind of being pointed to the VA or chain of command?
I had no idea that there was an MOS for it.
Yeah.
I had no idea, and that's why when he told me that's I was like, oh my god, that is insane. That's awesome. But no, there's no idea. There was a whole lot of they'd send me to the PTS center in Murfreesboro, and they locked me up for 2 weeks, and then I'd try to manipulate my way out for 2 weeks because it was insane and in
That's
there, and I'd get
terrifying.
that. That's all I know, and that happened several times. But even through the other parts of my, excuse me, the addiction and all that kind of stuff, I checked myself. And same thing in the 2 weeks, but I try to fight my way out. And that was the only thing there was, and there was no after. Even through the VA, there's no aftercare. They let you in, they try to give you medicine, they put you back out, and that's it. And I was right back on the same track every single time, and I tried so hard. You know,
Yeah.
yeah. I think it's really awesome that I understand what you said about people look at you and like, I mean, because a lot of people don't want the label as they don't want to be known for having any kind of issues, and that's another huge thing that I've known through with a lot of my friends and me is I immediately was fighting. I was like, I don't have that. That
Yeah.
is you're weak if you had that and PTSD and all this kind of stuff. And it's still, I mean, it's just embarrassing because you're just that's just the way. I guess it's not just a guy thing. It's females. I think in the military also that
Oh my God,
you're
yeah.
gung ho hardcore and you don't want to be labeled as something like that, and that sucks. That it's like that. But
Yeah. No, like and it is just it's the stigma because I mean I still hear from uh certain uh, NCOs from other people from other companies that still the saying that like no crazy people in my army, and it's like, well, what does that mean? Because I mean that sounds kind of crazy to me. Like I think taking care of people isn't that crazy, like I think a lot of people have a fundamental misunderstanding of what really is a danger to each other. And I think it's mostly not taking care of each other is much more of a danger than like a diagnosis that's going to help somebody. Because I mean, most of the time, a lot of the officers I work with too, who are my providers, they're not trying to get anybody out. Like they completely understand that a lot like this job is kind of a lot of people's lifeline. Like it is like a lot of people join this to get off their feet or to have purpose and stuff like that. So the last thing they want is to just shove them out the door. Like they're trying to do everything they can to keep them in. They're going like, hey, I designed this recovery path for you so that we can give this to your chain of command and your leaders so that if you stick to this plan and you show everybody that you're sticking to this plan, then it's gonna it's gonna aid you and it's gonna keep you in and hopefully it will actually help you. I even found out recently that you can deploy now if you're on medication. But the reason they need to know that, and you shouldn't really cover it up, is because they need to know if they can actually get like that medicine shipped to the like place that you're deploying to. And I don't know if that's a change or if it's always been like that. I'm assuming it's a change, but I mean, it seems like we're trying to help like more than people realize. So you went through two deployments and you came back, and if you don't mind me saying, you currently have the diagnosis of post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD. Um, when were you first diagnosed with it? Was there any signs when you came back, or was it later?
The first when I came back off the first tour, like I didn't think about it. I was so excited to go. It was an adventure, right? But I mean, it was really rough. Horrible things happened. But when I came back from the first one, the people in my command uh, were saying pretty much pushing me toward it, and I was like, I don't have that. The ego thing. Nobody wants anything wrong with them, obviously. And
Yeah,
but I did it. Wasn't diagnosed. I don't think then. I think on the second tour, I was getting, it was a totally different group of people, and that, and toward the halfway through that one, toward the end, uh, I wasn't diagnosed. They're still trying to push me like, hey, what's wrong with you? But kind of, and whatever. And then when I came home from the last one is when I think I was more enrolled with the VA,
yeah.
and because it was the VA that did it, so it was after the second deployment.
What was your command noticing, I guess? Were they noticing like was there trouble in performance or was there trouble in like attitude or were there any troubles or were they just kind of did they know about what
I
was going on with you?
I was really really I was always spot on. That was the 2 years of my life, the only two that I was like I think in my mind perfect. I was a badass. I thought
Yeah.
the most disciplined. I wanted everything to be perfect, and it's different from the second the first tour a lot. And I think because I was I started taking a lot of unnecessary risks. Um, but keeping in mind like and I was volunteering for everything. Not I was getting no sleep and I was a little edgy, which honestly it wasn't. I was a team leader, so it wasn't really smart, and that's when I was, got reprimanded. Not bad, just kind of like, hey man, trying to talk to me about saying, are you all right? A lot of that, and a lot of sending me up to talk to chaplains
Yeah.
and stuff. But my ego was, yeah, I'm fine. I'm just doing my job, and all this kind of and getting aggressive back toward them, and they couldn't really say anything because I was really doing my job excellent, and I was just kind of, I don't know, I was doing too much, and I wouldn't slow down, and
Absolutely.
that went into the after part that also like
Yeah.
coming home, just not wanting to slow down.
Yeah, absolutely. So I mean, there was like the irritability and then the sleep issues and kind of just the perfectionism too, like getting lost in your work. Just which I think a lot of people kind of, even if it's not post traumatic, they'll use something to kind of run from like what's going on inside of them, you know? Like, and if it's not one thing, it's the other. Like sex, booze, fucking drugs, work. Like, there's just so many like escapes from your actual like uh from your mindfulness, I guess, you know.
Yeah, I went full throttle into every single one of those, I think. And yeah, that was the rough part. Yeah.
Now, this is kind of an interesting question. I guess this gets more into like the statistical side of it, but did you notice symptoms like right away, like after traumatic experiences, or was it prolonged? Did it like start showing up over time?
After the first deployment coming home, everything was so fast, and there was a lot of, you know, crazy, insane things happened during that first one, even that I remember coming home, and this is what I first noticed, and I kind of felt bad about. I had some really decent friends that, you know, civilian friends, never did anything. They're kind of like family back home, and the fact, and they were there waiting, and it was just the weirdest feeling. And I didn't talk to them. Like I saw them there, and it was just really weird. And I didn't. Uh, I started, I think then, but it wasn't so much noticeable. It was just that I didn't want to be around them,
Yeah,
and that was unusual. So
absolutely. That makes perfect sense. I mean, God, there's so much that could be said about that. Is there like, do you remember any specific thoughts about it? Like, was it like, do you think it had shame, or was it like a fear? Like you knew kind of, was it just kind of like running from that? Like, what do you think that was?
what you said, I was about to say shame. It was a weird feeling of shame that I couldn't really describe, and it wasn't like, and they were really decent. They said, "Hey, take all the time you need, you know, or whatever," and I was like, "Yeah, okay." And it's a really insane, weird type of shame that I really can't explain at all. It was just made me feeling like I couldn't. I mean, I hit the ground still. I mean, going from 24 hours a day to not. It's different, I think, too, with the National Guard and an active duty, because a National Guard, you come home and you are, you know, you're back home and you're not around the same people, and people live in different states even, and you don't see the same people a whole lot. And the only people you really have to talk to are people that weren't there with you. They don't understand, so you don't want to talk about that kind of stuff or whatnot. And it's kind of, I maybe feel like I couldn't relate to anybody,
Yeah,
maybe. And
absolutely.
I still understand the shame part, but it was a weird feeling of shame that I can explain.
Absolutely. And that's really interesting what you just brought up, because I actually, what it's never been talked about in any of my classes or anything like that. Like even the difference between returning home active duty and returning home like reserves or National Guard, like the I would say active duty even has the opportunity to have more of a support team. Do you think, because I know a little bit about like what helped you later on, do you think a support team is big? Like just having people who understand and everything like that. Is that kind of like a key to recovery or your recovery?
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
I think that works pretty well. But I think everybody was feeling this. Everybody that I was in the groups I could been with was spread out, and I think I didn't realize this till later in the years that everyone was kind of like, I thought it was just me. Everybody else was fine with their families and just great, because I didn't know. And
Yeah.
so yeah, a support group would have been great, because I would be able to find out I'm not the only one. Because I was for years just thinking I was the only one, and I didn't want to bother anybody, you know, with anything. I thought I was crazy.
I know that you stayed in touch with some buddies that you were out there with and everything like that. Are they kind of in the same boat that you are, or is there like, have any of them dealt with what you're dealing with, or have made any like active, I guess, jumps at recovery or anything like that?
Well, the two I was closest to out of the three, uh, immediately after the second tour. I was with the second on the we were all three friends. Two of them committed suicide right out the gate,
Yeah.
and right after the second tour, and I had to. From then, I didn't. I had to do a lot of the funeral things, and I was in charge of that because I was a family friend and do all this kind of junk. So I totally that started a lot of my issues, and I totally just shied away from everybody. I didn't want to talk to anybody that I had served with. I
Yeah.
didn't for years, but just recently I reached out to some, and I've seen some that they actually, they had the same issues I did. Like I was saying, but I thought their lives were perfect, So, but they didn't. They had a lot of issues the whole time, and I was like, wow, that's a lot of what's helped me today is realizing that.
So like you get off the battlefield, right? And you experience what you experienced and you're kind of just shut up about it. Is there anything that anybody could have told you like while you were there that would have helped you in any way? Like that would have made you understand that it's okay to get help or just something comforting that you would have liked to have heard or have somebody have done for you?
I'm not sure what being there because it was just 24 hours a day. I mean, it was just it was almost like the Wild West, man. And the first was so there was so much, and you're just so I don't really think so after just or I don't think so during. No, I don't. I mean, unless somebody's just having a really hard problem. Like I said, they tried to make me, or that I got to go talk to a chaplain or whatever, and that they're actually cool and stuff, but I was ready to get up and go back to what I was doing, and
Yeah,
I don't know.
it's hard to say because I think that is good. I think taking away somebody's purpose while they're in the middle of a battle is just going to send somebody in the other extreme where they're suddenly now not only are they struggling, but now they're dealing with like a life without some sort of purpose. And it's like I think it's important to kind of have the process go hand in hand. I guess there aren't really any clear answers, but if there was some sort of a meeting, if there was some sort of like a group conversation among everybody, do you think anybody would have even been on board for that, like at the time? Or
I think. I mean, right now I say they should, and I should have, and everybody should. but at the time, it's again the whole ego thing, man, and it sucks that it's that way so bad. Because a whole lot of problems could have been solved. A whole lot of things could have happened with. I almost say I wish it was forced on us, but that'd be horrible to force people to group. But
yeah, yeah, it would.
yeah, people people need to know like what people have gone through, man. Like I know people have gone through some horrible times. I've put myself through horrible times, and to know that like wow that would have helped. It's kind of sad that you want everybody else to not go through that.
Yeah,
Yeah, I definitely think there should be. I wish there would have been.
yeah,
And but the ego thing would probably make some people get away from it. But I think if there was like a mandatory one where people could talk to people that just destroyed their freaking lives over not knowing that other people go through stuff, then that's people just need to know that people go through stuff. I think, man, and they
yeah,
don't have shame of it. But it's hard to tell somebody that you couldn't have told me that. This is just a quick thing that was really weird. Like I I don't know what could have been done like during or in combat. It wasn't until after that I remember I was driving down like my best. I mean, he's ripped his cross to his throat. My best friend ever, and nothing's missed a beat. We kept going, and nothing. It wasn't until after I think I was home like for a week, and I was driving down the road, and this guy watched his babysit his kids. We were super tight, and I was driving down the road, and also it just hit me that he was dead.
yeah,
Like out of that whole point. I mean, we're still just on and on and on, and it was the most disgusting, craziest thing I ever seen in my freaking life.
yeah,
And everything was just happy, not happy, but nothing, not one single thing changed that whole rest of the year. Nothing. And and so that's what I was saying during, that's why everything's so fast. Like I said, they made me go talk to chaplain, but everybody's, they for different instances that they do that. Uh, but you're just so busy. That's why I guess, I don't know why I'm saying, but directly after uh, is really important.
That was a big thing I learned about even the diagnosis is that the timing is really big. Like you just said, like post-traumatic stress disorder is later. Like there's something like an acute stress disorder and an adjustment disorder that's usually really soon after something happens. That's like your like most people honestly would have an adjustment disorder after coming home from like AIT. Like it's just change. Like change is stressful, but with post-traumatic
Yeah.
stress, it's there's like an elongated period of, like you said, you got the mission done, you're home. Um, and then you're just not feeling normal and things start happening after the fact and you're going like, well, why? Like, why is it happening now? I've been fine. And it's like I didn't realize how big the timeline was on the diagnosis. And so
Yeah,
everything you're
'cause I
saying is just by the book. Like that's it. Like
well, I never that's why that prolonged therapy and all that kind of stuff, and through even the Veterans Treatment Court, they're still trying to push to me about the combat stuff, your the stress and all that kind of stuff. And I was, I know you're there for. I was like, yeah, those are the happiest 2 years of my life. I
yeah,
was, it was great. I loved it. It was an adventure and all this stuff, and then the after part, the guilt, the survivor's guilt. Is that what it is? Survivor's guilt or something like that.
yes, yeah,
Yeah, you had all the after stuff. I never really thought about it that way at all either. I was trying to tell him that none of that bothered me. I was fine. I loved it when I was there. I was just
yeah.
Superman.
I got like a little quarter on my end. So
I had one of those. I had to have one of those through therapy I did through the VA to record myself all the time, but
yeah.
I had to quit that one. Yeah.
What was that about? Is it just like so you can is it almost like journaling or is it like just
Well,
your thoughts?
it was actually called prolonged therapy, and it was done via Zoom also. But I had to do that to record the most traumatic thing in your life. You had to talk about it and record it and listen to
Yeah,
it and all this stuff. But I only made it partway through because I had to go through. Part of the therapy is going through a whole lot of my life that I didn't feel like going through, and I
yeah,
was stressing out and everything. And she said, "Well, just wait till you're done with whatever you're going through now with the the addiction, the trouble, and all that kind of stuff. Uh, get through that and to where I wasn't." She said I wasn't really ready for it at the time, which I guess
yeah.
I really wasn't because it is rough, man.
No,
Like
absolutely.
having to
That
go through.
makes sense. Because it's like I read about that in a book actually, and it's like it's kind of sending you into the episode. It's like it's almost the idea of like exposure therapy, where it's like kind of like you're reliving the trauma, like your amygdala, which is like your lizard brain, like your fight or flight, like shuts down your limbic system, which is like your emotions and all that shit. And it just sends you back into the fight or flight. And like supposedly, like the idea is with exposure therapy, you can kind of like it's supposed to be prolonged exposure where you kind of can learn how to handle it. But it's fucking rough. Like it's not
Yeah,
they did MRIs like on people's brains trying that shit, and it's like they're like, yeah, the brain just shut down. Like that sucks. Like,
yeah. I was really apologetic to her. She was really super nice, and I was like, I'll keep trying. She's like, no, I just you're not ready right now. And it was pretty stressful, I guess.
and now we talked about this earlier, and I didn't even prepare to talk about it, but I think it's just so damn important. I want to make sure that we do. You said that having a sense of humor probably saved your life, right? Like, could you expound upon that a little more? Like, like anything you can disclose? Like, I don't know. Like, how do you think that helps somebody? And because a lot of people are afraid of their dark humor, and that's the first thing they introduce themselves with is like, are you gonna get me in trouble for my like sense of humor? Like, and I'm like, no, I think you need that.
It's just a survival technique I've had since as long as I can remember, man. Being able to entertain yourself, uh, it grew up into bigger and better things. I mean, when you're suffering the hardest, it's just a way to survive. It's a survival technique just to make it through anything. I don't know. In my mind, I'm hilarious. I, I am. It's funny, man.
Yeah.
I just
And you
I'd rather do that than rather do that than suffer, I guess. I don't know.
absolutely. Yeah. I mean, like, there's kind of the idea that like, and this is, I don't know, maybe a little existential, but for like crying and laughing kind of hold hands. It's like, which one would you rather do? Like, but it's a release. It's a release of like feelings. That's kind of it dates back to even like uh Socrates and like the two faces of like comedy tragedy. Like I think they hold hands, it's a release of these like tragic emotions. And I think that like it's just so important. Uh and you can't really ask everyone in the military to cry through it. So in my opinion, the darker the better. Like I think you kind of
Yeah,
need to
even
be able to laugh about the worst shit.
if it's just I guess Mike could argue too, like it's masking it, the emotion, and kind of delaying it to put it off, also. But I mean, when it was some, when like life or death stuff, sometimes it's whatever gets you through it, I guess too. But
Yeah.
I don't know. I know it's a huge part of it's a huge part of everything I do.
Yeah. Is there any story you can disclose that wouldn't get you in trouble? Like any funny thing that was out there that was kind of coping or like like, nothing that would get you in trouble or anything.
My combat one,
Yeah, maybe. Like
or
if you want. Like you don't even have to, but
well, yeah. The funniest thing in the world, we had a little interpreter that looked just like my buddy. He's my Marine buddy. Uh, we went to a mass calves. You know, it was really bad. We were a quick reactionary force, and it was horrible. And it was scary. It was nighttime, and he'd already been there for years. He was an Iraqi. He was our interpreter, and he got it's like a piece of cardboard, and we were putting little pieces of brain through the fence because it was a bomb. It went through chain link fence, and everything. Pieces of skull with hair on it, and we were walking around with it, and it was just hilarious. It was the scariest. I mean, it was the scariest time because we were still looking for the other the suicide bombers in the village, and it was making the people mad. But we were it was hilarious because it was just so gross and funny that
yeah.
you know, it was like hors d'oeuvres.
Yeah.
That's any other time in the world, like right now, that would probably be disgusting. But